You gotta hand it to Fate for not only having the really interesting creativity to take heroic spirits, fictional characters, real characters, and kind of redo them for like Holy Grail Wars, but really appreciate the costume design for especially Grand Order. I mean, on one hand, you can look at a character who is in the most anime designed tiger suit imaginable, and you could say, okay, this is anime. But then on the other hand, you look at the historical accuracy, and it's like, well, there definitely was characters in the past who wore the pelts of their slain animals, just obviously instead of making it gross and, disgusting, they made it pretty damn adorable in anime. So it's like, on one hand, they could argue that there would be characters who would wear the pelts of those they slay, but then on the other hand, you're like, well, this is anime, so of course they made the girl look like this. I wasn't expecting this girl, I wasn't expecting Jaguar Man who looks like a tiger, but you know what? It was weird, it was out there, and I had a blast with it. It was pretty awesome, and I wasn't taking the character seriously whatsoever, so when the animation kicked in and you were seeing the destructive power of a god, it's kind of hilarious to see a character look like that but cause the destruction that we just witnessed. Fate Grand Order is just an absolute hoot, and I enjoy my time week by week. This episode was pretty good. It was kind of interesting seeing how much they kind of put the emphasis on just past cities, past Holy Grails, and worlds that they've had to abandon over their quests, because this is a story that's much later than the beginning of Grand Order, but it still functions in a way that even if you have no experience with the game or past story arcs, like, it still functions as a arc that you can follow and understand and not feel lost at what they're discussing. Like, I played a good amount of the mobile game, but I don't even remember a lot of what happened when I played it. However, you get a good understanding of the guilt and burden that our main character Fujimaru is dealing with after feeling like he's had to sacrifice so many and it never gets easier with time. It's something that immediately makes you feel like, okay, he's not feeling as generic as he would feel should we not have this bit of backstory. It kind of functions in a way that it just feels like a character backstory in any other anime. Just with Grand Order, we know there's a lot of stories we haven't seen at this point in time in the animation realm. So it was nice just having that little bits of just kind of sappy dialogue, something that was clearly depressing and a little traumatic for him. How it tied at the end of the episode where, this is a character you can't go up against. There's absolutely no way, so you have to make a decision. Do you continue to fight or do you flee? And if we didn't have that backstory of him really feeling guilty from characters, even if you don't know who those characters were, people were calling for help and clearly he wasn't able to save them. So it's like, him being able to say, let's retreat, Merlin, is something that even if you don't have that connection, it's something that makes you feel like this character is actually more multi-layered than we're probably giving him credit for. And I was someone like that. I never had a strong connection to what I played with the game with this character, but within this anime, within a few episodes, they're making me say, you know what? I'm actually glad he's a part of this series because there's some interesting ways that you could really explore his character, both with the romantic tension between him and his servant, and also just the overall idea of someone who, really humanity's fate's on his shoulders, and that's something that would never be easy to handle, whether you have a strong mentality or a weak one. It was nice, though, to see that all the hard work of doing basic labor for the common folk has paid off, and Gilgamesh has rewarded them with, hey, go take a look at this and see if everyone's okay. It was interesting, I wasn't sure what to expect with, reaching this town, because this episode, it really could have went a lot of ways. It could have went seriously dramatic, or it could stay fairly humorous. And there's a lot of humor based on the intro stuff, even if we ignore just some of the more dramatic, thinking of the past and worlds that we've lost. But then when you get introduced the whole Jaguar Man situation, it's like, where were they gonna go? And this easily could have failed, because you got a character who seemingly is tormenting villages, and the men, there's hardly any men here, you're sacrificing them one a day, and you're like, oh, okay, we're seeing this chibi looking cute character who obviously is going to be behind this, and then apparently they're just kind of doing labor elsewhere. It's like, Grand Order has this ability to be super serious, but also super ridiculous and humorous, and if you've seen some of the costume designs and wardrobes from just different servants in Grand Order, they have some crazy designs overall. And I know this could be a turnoff for some, but I thought it was hilarious, I thought it was adorable, and surprisingly, they made this character badass despite looking as she does. And I'm actually excited to see the more ridiculous sides to Grand Order in animation form, which I may not have said coming into this anime, but seeing how they've been able to blend the really interesting Fate formula with obviously a new twist to the formula with, both the serious and comedic and just some of the more slice of life, it kind of feels like Grand Order can do things in a way that Fate hasn't seen up to this point in a main series. It really does feel like they can bounce around between being something we know, something we're interested in seeing but don't have a lot to compare to, and something that's like, this feels like a lot of other anime that's not Fate, but somehow they made it work in this episode. And if people completely dislike the whole cutesy character that's apparently a god trying to kill you, I can understand that. But for me, it wasn't actually a turnoff, which is surprising because usually it would be, but there was just something so wholesomely adorable and ridiculous about this character and how they incorporated a god in the way that they did, and the little glimpses of power we did get to see was kind of amazing. Grand Order is just really gripping at this point in time because really the characters are all interesting. Whether we just see them for a minute based on surface level, you're like, oh, that's a cool character design, they probably have a cool ability, yeah, let's see that character more in the future. But most of the characters that we focus on, it feels like, you know, the voice actors get into their role pretty damn well, so you feel like there's actually some passion behind their dialogue, even in the mundane scenes. Then you get some of the ridiculous combat and just animation, you're like, okay, it feels fun, but when they actually start talking and reflecting about their past, and you get some of the more dramatic, but not like super dramatic, but just some things are on their mind, they're feeling some emotions, it does feel like Grand Order, it knows what it's doing. It's actually trying to tell a story where the characters matter, and the best Fate series are the ones where characters can just sit around a bonfire and talk about life, and that's the best type of things ever. I think back to that scene in Fate Zero where Archer, Ryder, and Saber sit around drinking and kind of discussing what it is to be a king. Like, that's why, you know, Fate Zero was so great. You remove the animation, it was like the characters were all a main character and you were interested in following them. I don't think Grand Order has reached that yet. I mean, we're only 4 episodes in, but I'm already interested in their characters, both at a surface level, as well as actually listening to them talking, learning about them on a personal level. And as long as Fate can nail basically its characters, and to a degree, its story as well, but more so the characters, then it's going to excel. I love the production to this show. I think it's amazing, especially with how they just continue to let us zoom in on these characters as they're bouncing around. It feels like we are this character doing these ridiculous moves. But it is the characters that have entertained me for 4 weeks now, and I doubt it's going to ever let up, because the characters, even Fujiwara, who I really didn't have a strong connection to going into this anime, after this episode, even him, I'm like, you know what? I'm excited to see more of this character, especially because he has that noble virtue where he wants to save everyone, but he clearly recognizes sometimes you can't do that, and he's clearly lost a lot throughout his journey trying to recover the Holy Grails. I mean, you get some really interesting setup with a man who's like, hey, you know, you're kind of evil for giving me food, but I kind of respect you for doing it. Let me drop you some wisdom. There's some storms coming and things are going to get insane. And I just love the visuals and how they're really making it eerie. Something that I love, and you don't see it too often, but you definitely see it anytime you're in a sandy location. The character will just kind of like, wind will come in, the sand will blow, and the character disappears. It's such a cliche tropey scene, but it's something that always gets me excited. Like, you know, oh shit, there's gonna be some crazy things coming to this town, and you better hope you're prepared. And I don't know what it is about the food in this series. I mentioned it, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but it was when they're all eating dinner with all the servants and things like that. The food in this series looks incredible. I don't know why they're going to the mile that they are to make the food interesting, but when that man was just handed like a piece of bread, I was like, bread actually looks pretty decent, or whatever it was. This series, it's just, it makes me happy. It really does. And I'm glad it's not just a show that I'm excited for because the fights are cool or it has some decent comedy. Like, it has that, but it really is, I'm excited about all the characters, whether we're going more tropey and gimmicky with a character persona or situation, or we're going really interesting and well written. Like, it kind of feels like Fate Grand Order has more opportunity to break the formula that we've come to expect with main series in this franchise, where you kind of think you know what to expect with Fate, but this is kind of tearing down those walls and boundaries and allowing it to have a lot more creative freedom. And granted, sometimes that creative freedom is going to be a lot more gimmicky into what you expect with anime, with slice of life, high school series, sure. But I do feel like they find a way to incorporate it into a Fate-style situation where it's kind of nice that you can have these very serious situations, but also have some more cutesy ones where, you know, this city is kind of doing amazing. So it does feel natural to have some more basic slice of life scenes, or even some more ridiculous ones when you're looking at a character who's apparently a god, but is dressed up in a onesie. It's like, that's kind of incredible and crazy all wrapped up into one. Fate Grand Order is just excelling in my opinion. It's something that I'm clearly going to enjoy for the remainder of its run, and I mean, obviously, you can tell by now if this is going to be a series for you. I think it's kind of shown all its cards and styles of what it wants to tell you, from dramatic to ridiculous, so it's like, I don't think people should be shocked anymore if more characters have ridiculous character designs in the future of Grand Order, or if they go more serious as well. This really is just an anime that I'm looking forward to every single week. I leave entertained, I enter an episode assuming I'm going to be entertained, and at times they excel past my expectations, but I'd be interested. For people who had no idea that this character was going to come up, what was your gut reaction to seeing a character in a tiger onesie who's apparently a god? Were you pretty on board with it like myself, or were you like, okay, this is too much? And as well, for game players, what did you think of this? Because I imagine this was something you guys were excited for, or just kind of, well, I wonder what the anime community is going to feel about some of this. So whatever you're feeling, let me know down in the comment section below. And if you did enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like and also hit that subscribe button if you happy new. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.